Madeline worked as a milkmaid in the countryside all of her life. While many farm workers complained about their lives, Madeline loved her job and enjoyed her simple life. She didn't want much and lived a peaceful life close to nature. She lived in a small house near the forest and spent her time alone, but with a kind heart. Her husband worked as a tractor driver on a farm and worked long hours. Madeline always worried that he would harm his health, and sadly, she was right. He had a heart attack at work and passed away. After her husband's death, Madeline was completely alone. She found solace in the beauty of nature, especially the familiar forest she had known since childhood. She would walk among the trees, gather mushrooms, and never feared getting lost because she knew every tree in the forest. The forest itself told her which way to turn. Madeline sometimes felt like one with the forest, as if an invisible thread connected them. After work, the woman came home tired and immediately put a sizable smoky teapot on the stove. She couldn't do without tea. Sitting at a wooden table, she carefully held a photo of her daughter Tracy with her granddaughter Primrose in her hands. Her granddaughter had grown up and was very attractive. Tracy and her daughter lived in the city and didn't visit the grandmother much, which made her sad. But she didn't show it. She agreed with everything and understood. Tracy was responsible for all this because she left the village in search of a better life. She had dreams of becoming a sewing machine operator and finding a rich husband, but her love life didn't go well, and she got kicked out of school because of her poor grades. Tracy's parents weren't very smart, and she wasn't either, so all of her hopes were shattered. Eventually, Tracy did find a husband, but he was a heavy drinker who mistreated her, criticizing her for being from the village. She got tired of it and filed for a divorce, even though she felt sorry for their child. She saw no other way out. Madeline and her husband understood the situation and did everything they could to help their daughter and granddaughter. They gave some of their retirement money to help them rent a house. They sold vegetables and fruits from their garden and sent the money to Tracy. Tracy got a job as a cashier in a grocery store and worked there. She didn't need special education, and sometimes she cheated customers to make extra money. As her daughter grew, her needs increased, and Tracy couldn't find another job. Primrose grew up, and her mother remained single. She had some short-lived romances, but nothing serious. Tracy hardly ever visited the village. She preferred city life and didn't want to think about her childhood in the village that she had always wanted to leave behind. Madeline never complained that her daughter did not visit her. She had a good heart and tried to understand her daughter, although she missed her. Madeline had a dog, Luna. He was old, half-blind, and firm. Madeline did not even put him on a chain. She let him live out his life in freedom. She took pity on the dog and respected his old age. One day, Madeline got up very early and started weeding the grass in the garden. She kept looking at the sky and thinking that it might rain soon. She felt a similar smell from a thunderstorm that was approaching. She sped up and then suddenly looked up and saw a silhouette near the fence. My God! Madeline threw up her hands. Primrose, the girl, entered the courtyard and was already standing at the threshold. She held a large bag in her hands and shifted from one foot to the other, hiding her eyes. It was clear that she was uncomfortable. Hey, grandmother. I'm sorry, I came without notice. I didn't even have time to buy sweets for you, Primrose said. Madeline hurriedly took off her gardening gloves and asked, What happened? You came with your bag. You would never come here before. But here you are. Madeline hugged the girl and said, Tell me what happened. Primrose brought the bag into the house and told her grandmother that her mother had brought a man into the house. He didn't want to work. He was lying on the couch all day and even made Primrose bring him food and clean his socks. He was lazy and bossy. Primrose was already eating her grandmother's soup, and she continued, It's tough for me to live with him, so I came here, Grandma. I'll stay for a bit and then see what I can do. I love my mother, but I don't want to endure this man. What would I do there? I'm just a burden to them. Madeline was not against it. She was pretty happy. She was bored by herself, and she would have more fun having her granddaughter around. Primrose had been living in the village for a month. She helped around the house, looked after the garden, and worked on the computer during the day. Madeline was very surprised. How's this possible? You sit on the internet and just get money. Their life was quiet and calm until one night an unexpected incident happened. Madeline and Primrose woke up to the old dog, Luna, barking so badly as if he had seen something terrible. The dog was generally quiet and barely made a sound, but now he was working so hard as if warning his owner. Primrose jumped out of bed, looked out into the yard, and saw something that made her knees tremble. She called out in a trembling voice. The old woman came out and froze a wounded bear was lying by the fence. The day before, she had heard poetry, so the poor animal ran out of the forest to look for help. Madeline didn't know what to do. Primrose ran back and forth in a fuss. Madeline carefully examined the beast and saw that the bear was pregnant. Thanks to her efforts, the wounded animal gave birth to her first child, but then died. The rest of the cubs died before they were born. After such a terrible night, Primrose and Madeline could not recover for a long time. They took the bear cub that survived into the house and gave him warm milk to drink. Primrose took him to sleep and wrapped him in a shaggy blanket, imitating his mother's wool and keeping him warm all night. The next day, Madeline called the neighbors for help. They helped her bury the mama bear, but the old woman didn't tell anyone about the bear cub that lived. However, some of the neighbors noticed the animal through the fence and told poachers about the bear cub. The poachers offered Madeline a lot of money for him. However, she didn't agree to this offer. They immediately left, though swearing and grumbling. The bear cub grew up, and when he became a teenager, the milkmaid and her granddaughter released him. The old woman understood that she could not keep an adult bear, and it was dangerous, so he went to live on his own. Now, of course, he returned to her house initially, but then gradually adapted to a free life. A few months passed. Primrose got a job as a post carrier. She had a bicycle and a bag over her shoulder and delivered correspondence, letters, and pensions to the surrounding villages. The son of a local bankrupt farmer, Jeremy, started making a pass at her. He was a nasty guy who liked to drink, and in addition, he was a womanizer. Primrose did not like him at all. He made her sick. Jeremy developed a grudge because of the girl ignoring him. He wanted to do some dirty trick, and then, by chance, one evening Jeremy witnessed how Primrose was stroking a tame bear. A plan immediately formed in his head. He had acquaintances in the city who would give a lot for that bear, whether alive or dead. He thought that it would kill two birds with one stone. This would be a way to improve his financial situation while also taking revenge on Primrose. One evening, 3 big men came to Madeline's house. They had knives in their hands and guns on their shoulders. They burst into the house and asked where the tame bear was. Primrose cried. She knew who was behind this. She wouldn't expect that the farmer's son would contact the bandits. Madeline and Primrose resisted for a long time. They didn't want to say anything. The bandits had already gone crazy. They shot the old doll to make them talk. When they put a gun to Madeline's head, Primrose couldn't take it anymore and decided to show them where the bear was. It was getting dark, but the girl still led the bad guys into the forest. She knew a male bear was already with his girlfriend because it was mating season. She had seen them together from a distance, and the female bear growled at her but didn't recognize her. The poachers didn't know this. Primrose took them to where the bears were, and the men realized they had fallen into a trap. Instead of finding one bear, they were face to face with 2. The bear stared angrily at the bad guys and waited for one of them to do something. One of them reached for his gun, and the bears attacked him. They bit and scratched him for 15 minutes until the bad guys ran away from the forest in terror, barely able to walk. Primrose petted the bear, and he licked her hands. The bear's girlfriend stayed away. She was scared of people and didn't understand why he was being friendly with a human. Right after the incident, Madeline and her granddaughter went to the police and reported what happened. The local sheriff quickly arrested the poachers because only one car had recently come from the city, and it was easy to catch them at Jeremy's father's farm where they had stopped.